Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen of the 128th District in Berks and Lancaster counties. Joining me today is Tami Hildebrand from the Berks County Department of Agriculture. Tami, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
We were having a pleasant conversation about agriculture in Berks and northern Lancaster County for that matter. How long have you been involved in agriculture? What's your background?
Well, my background, I'm originally from York County, so I'm a transplant, but I went through the...
that portion out of the...
It's a beautiful agricultural county as well.
Yeah.
I went to business college, Central Penn Business College for travel tourism. I worked in the hotel industry for 10 years. Quit and went back to college to get my bachelor's degree at Kutztown University in geography. And there was an internship available at the Ag Land Preservation Board office, and I took that internship, and I've been there ever since. So 18 years.
And you obviously love it.
I do. I love it. I feel it's a positive, good thing for the future, and it's just been wonderful to work.
You went to Kutztown University.
Right.
I have a master's degree from Kutztown. How much did that influence your thinking about Berks County? Had more of a chance to look at it, or were you familiar with it already?
I had moved here, or moved there in 1989,
okay.
And I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay and work there. It's a beautiful county. There are opportunities there, and there are 5 colleges there, 5 colleges and universities, and I think that tells you a lot about the county. All
right. Now, Berks County has a long and storied agricultural history. This may be a little bit of a curveball. In terms of the county's history in agriculture, I mean, we hear about the Stoltzfuses and others. They were attracted to Berks County because of quality of soil,
correct,
water.
Right. And Conrad Weiser, the history there with Conrad Weiser and the Conrad Weiser homestead. Agriculture, the closeness to water, the rivers and the soils, the wonderful agricultural soils that were there, was a great place to stop and settle and create farming.
When I drive through the county, I'm awestruck. I was at the Ole feed mill a couple days ago. My children think it's a field trip because there's an ice cream place on the way.
You have to do that.
on the turnpike there, and there's a little bit of a petting, so free advertisement.
Oh, right.
If
Ole Turnpike Dairy.
Yeah, if you will. But as I drove through Ole Township, and then later I looked at the map of preserved farmland there, I don't know if it's half, but it sure looks like half to me, or more of that township is preserved.
Yes, yes it is. I don't know, over 9,000 acres possibly already in Ole. I don't have I can dig through my paper.
You don't have to.
But it is there's a swath of prime agricultural soils that runs up from Lancaster through Carnarvon and then through Ole and then to the east. And some of those prime ag soils are not found anywhere else in the world, believe it or not. And that's the wonderful, fortunate thing of Berks County.
They're not found anywhere else in the world.
That is correct, what I am being told. I was always told that, yes. That prime ag soil that's rich and fertile and non-irrigated, great yields, beautiful yields.
And wonderful hills around it, and I've worked with some of our conservation groups in terms of the Ole Hills, Schuylkill Highlands to preserve that area. When I drive in there, I always tell my children, of course, it's hard to read a sign, a National Historic Registry, that we have an entire township that is so acknowledged nationally, and I think you point to one of the reasons, the high quality soils there. Right. Preserved in perpetuity.
Yes.
Agriculture conservation easements. What does agriculture conservation easement mean?
It means that there was a deed restriction placed on the property forever. It must stay in agriculture forever. That's the perpetuity part.
All right.
Yeah.
And that farmer, that landowner receives compensation for the easement, and it's currently $2,500 an acre up to?
Berks County's cap is $2,500 an acre, you're correct.
All right, so I'm a farmer, I've got 100 acres, I said, this is prime soil, I want it preserved. Take me through the process.
Okay. All right, well, you've met the first criteria. That is acreage. You have to have 35 acres or more, unless you're adjacent to land that's already protected through our organization or another qualifying agriculture conservation easement organization. The Berks Conservancy has preserved land, Wildlife Conservancy has preserved land, Adopt an Acre. So anything that would meet our criteria as far as farmland preservation, you could have 35 acres or more adjacent to it. Any less than that is 10. The second one would be, how much of that prime ag soil do you have on your property? You would need to have 50% or more of the soils on that farm in those prime ag soil classes 1 through 4. 50% or more of the farm has to be in active ag production, pasture land, grazing land. You have to be enrolled in the township's ag security area. And the last criteria is you cannot be in what is the county has described as in the comprehensive plan as a future growth area. Because that has been established that in the hopes in the future that there could be development there. So if you met those 5 criteria, you could apply to the program.
How often, just a little bit of a rabbit trail, how often is there a collision course with a farmer who says, I'd like to preserve this, and he didn't realize that he was mapped into an area of future growth?
Yeah, it's sad news when you have to let the landowner know that they are in that position if they don't already know it. If they're active in their municipality and know what is happening there, they probably already know that they're in a future growth area.
There's a waiting list. People want to get in this program.
Right, right. Well, if you've met those 5 criteria and you apply to the program, then you are thrown in the pot with all the other eligible applicants. We then do a ranking on each farm. We look at the soils, how much of those prime ag soils are there, and you're given a soil score as part of the land evaluation site assessment. The soils is the land evaluation side. The site assessment is when you look at the farmland potential, development potential, or the clustering potential of the farm. The development potential looks at the farm and looks at how developable it is and how attractive it is to a developer. How close is it to public water, public sewer? How much road frontage does it have? And then we look at the farmland potential and say how large is the farm? Does it have a conservation plan? How close is it to a historic site? Because that's a significant, score there. And the last thing is the clustering potential. How close are you to the other farms that are already protected? How close are you to the ag security area enrollment around you? How many acres are there? And then we look at effective ag zoning and also where are you in the county comprehensive plan as well.
I've got some follow-up questions, but we're going to pause for a moment here. Let's take a quick break. Legislative report will return in a moment.
Did you know that the Pennsylvania Farm Show's history goes all the way back to 1851? Originally organized as a state fair by the Pennsylvania Agricultural Society, it was discontinued in 1899. It wasn't until 1916 that Charles Patton, the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, worked with others to develop a new agricultural fair which debuted in January 1917. It was in 1925 that the roots were laid for the farm show that we know today. The show had grown so large that 40,000 attendees were traveling to various sites all around Harrisburg. During this year, the Pennsylvania State Department of Agriculture took control of the event and the legislature had decided to appropriate money that gave birth to the Farm Show complex. Finally, in 1931, the main exhibition building opened and welcomed 150,000 visitors to the show that year. Over the years, the farm show has continued to grow. Various events showcasing animals, products, and skills were added to the event. The farm show complex has also continued to grow, with more buildings and arenas being added over the years. The count stands at 24 acres inside 11 buildings and 3 arenas. Today, the show hosts approximately 6,000 animals, 10,000 competitive exhibits, and 300 commercial exhibits, along with over 500,000 visitors. Since the doors to the main exhibition building opened, the farm show has become the world's biggest indoor agricultural event. Now you know.
Welcome back to the program. My guest is Tami Hildebrand from the Berks County Department of Agriculture. Let's continue that discussion. I look at a map of the northern end of the county, or I consider Reading the epicenter. I see Marion, Perry, significant density of agriculture in that area. It's always been that way.
Yes, as far as agriculture, and it's a flat area, a good mix of those prime ag soils. When you talk about Perry, not too much development. You have some very forward-thinking township supervisors also in that those townships that have established what is known as effective ag zone, a more agricultural focused zoning to have less development there. So in those areas, that's where you have seen the easements cluster.
So we see a cluster of easements. Is it to be assumed that we're going to give some preference and priority to attaching farms to the already existing easement areas rather than trying to start tabula rasa in some other part of the county?
Well, that's where the clustering potential comes in the scoring. That's where we see the scores really increase. And over the years, with the success of the program and other organizations also preserving farmland in those areas, that's where we see that portion of those scores, farm scores, rise in the LISA ranking.
We see less building going on. It's kind of where the economy is at. Was there ever a point that somebody was on the waiting list for preservation and then you turned around and they pulled out and next thing we know there's bulldozers on the property?
Not to my knowledge, but it's not inconceivable of happening. Yeah. We have people on the waiting list, I think from the 1990s, that have been waiting, and just in areas that score a little bit lower. They're not in those cluster areas, but they still have met the criteria to apply. So they are committed to hanging in there until they get selected, which is great.
And I certainly believe in the right of individual landowner to make choices about their own property. No one's choice is being taken away here. But has there been some historical tension in the ag preservation community and building and development? Some concern maybe how much is enough in terms of preservation?
Right. I know maybe 10 years ago there was quite a pushback when the economy was really flying and development was flying. There was some concern on the home builder side that we have done enough. But what is enough? I don't think any of us have a goal or a figure in mind in order to sustain agriculture, keep things growing, keep we need to continue to eat. We need to continue to wear clothing. We are fortunate, as I said earlier, in Berks County to have the wonderful soils to do that have great yields to do that. And we can't say that about other states. I mean, we're number one in the state we're number one in the nation for farmland preservation. Back in October, the state just reached 500,000 acres. I think who's behind us is California and Maryland. So here in the southeastern region of Pennsylvania, we're the ones that have to, challenge forward. We have the challenge of preserving this great soil because it's not found everywhere, as I said earlier.
Lancaster County has a substantive history of preserving their soils as well, and kind of has a legendary reputation nationally for non-irrigated farms, but they seem strikingly different. If look at a Berks County farm and you look at a Lancaster County farm, by the kind of machinery and equipment that are employed on the farm is the most noteworthy thing. There's not too many places I can go in the country and see a team of horses, pulling.
Right.
But
it is diverse.
Yeah, it is diverse, but I see them both being efficient in their own way. They're very productive soils. And this may be a hardball question, but how would you compare the soils of Lancaster and Berks? You mentioned some of the highest quality soils in the world in Berks County.
Right.
Lancaster can't be far behind.
No, well, and they may even be right before us a little bit. But their area, their topography is a little flatter. Berks does have some, hilly terrain there. We're in between the South Prong and the Appalachian Trail. So we have a little bit diverse topography as compared to Lancaster. Lancaster's a little bit more flat. So, you have that nice flat soil, which is always attractive to any farming and development. you know, because then less things that they have to clear away if you're looking from the development side.
So my agriculture property is less desirable because it's rolling. It's good for sheep. Our children.
No, but for pasture land, grazing, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
It's great.
We're involved in 4-H, and we bred some sheep this winter. Of course, it had to be 0 and 5 degrees when
that was a hard winter.
Yeah,
it was
when
hard.
they were birthing. But it's been a lot of fun for the children, so I enjoy living in an area that supports agriculture, which if we could segue, we talked about agriculture conservation easements,
right.
Now agriculture security areas.
Right. That is a landowner protection program. We have the Ag Conservation Easement Program that is a land protection program. Ag Security Area, though you have to be in one to apply to our program, we always want to suggest that landowners get enrolled in that township's Ag Security Area because it protects them against nuisance laws and condemnation. Even though they're not interested in applying to the Ag Conservation Easement Program, it's still an active operating farm that needs to be out at 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes, spreading manure, tilling the soil, because you know they're racing against the weather, they're racing against the planting season. So they need to be out doing that whenever they have the opportunity to do that. And this Ag Security Area law protects them in order to do that.
So if I'm out with my lawnmower at 4 o'clock in the morning and
No, I'm afraid not. Unless you're enrolled in Ag Security Area and you can convince the township that what you're mowing there is going to turn into an agricultural product. Other than that, no.
And you're trying to aggregate a minimum of 250 acres in that township, and then when you get to 500 acres, someone would be eligible for an agriculture conservation easement. So it doesn't have to be contiguous in order to be an agriculture security area, but it needs to be within that township.
Yeah, well, yeah, but however, if you want to enroll, let's just say your township doesn't have an Ag Security Area. You can go to your adjacent township and enroll, like Kumru in your district does not have Ag Security Area, but Brecknock does, Robeson does. If you have someone in Kumru that wants to enroll, you can go to either of those townships and get enrolled. Now, your Kumru would have to agree to it, but you know they don't have the means or the vast amounts of farmland to start one, to establish one.
So an adjacent township would be acceptable if you don't have something in your township that's offered. Maybe difficult question in terms of how many farms or acres are in those agriculture security areas.
Over 158,000 acres, I think, are enrolled at the moment in Ag Security Area.
So there's actually more in the Ag Security areas in the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program, and I'm not sure that's widely known.
Yes. Yeah, we don't get asked that question too many times, but again, you have some folks that aren't interested in preserving their property, or they already have in their own method by putting their own deed restriction on their property, but still they want to not be complained about by doing what they need to do, so they enroll in Ag Security Area. We also suggest that they enroll in Clean and Green. It's not a requirement for our program if a landowner is or isn't enrolled, but we suggest that they do because that's a tax savings for them.
All right, and there's no taxpayer dollars involved in the agriculture security area, right?
No.
It's to protect agriculture in perpetuity in that area to the extent the landowner wants to continue in agriculture.
Right.
You talked about our stature relative to the rest of the nation. How many acres do we have preserved in agriculture conservation easements in Berks County? Ballpark.
We have over 68,000 acres now.
All right.
Preserved.
When did that program start to bring us to this 68,000 approximately?
Well, the first easement was purchased in 1990. And we're in that 25-year period now. So it's taken 25 years to get to this point. But as you know, probably in 1999, the county was involved in purchasing a bond issue to preserve farmland because they were seeing quite the development pressure coming up the line from Philadelphia and Allentown. So they wanted to put some heavy dollars towards it, and they put a $33 million bond on the table for easement purchase, which turned into about over $60 million because of leveraging everything.
From state and federal
Right.
sources at that
We had
point.
33 million, and when we leveraged that with state and other federal money, yeah, it turned into over 60 million, I believe. And it took us 5 years down the road, which was very nice. And then in 2006, we had a line of credit. That was $24 million. And that took us into, I think, 2011 to work through that money. And that's where you really see, when you look at a diagram of what we've done over the years, you really see the easements shoot up in those years.
Right. In the last couple of years, how many total acres have been preserved in a per year basis? You say it's slowed down. To what extent?
The commissioners that are in office now said they're going to allocate $1 million a year for easement purchase. We also are allowed to use the rollback penalties on clean and green, and we get donations, and we also have money from condemnation. Say a highway has to widen and things like that, that they need to take, you know, a little strip of preserved farmland. We get paid back for that. So we have been having over $1 million, $1.5 million for the last 5 years possibly, and that has gotten us about 1,500 acres a year.
Rollback provision on clean and green. I know what you're saying. Inside ball, amplify.
When a property is enrolled in clean and green, you have certain restrictions that you need to follow. No more than 2 acres, I believe, can be taken out a year. Please don't quote me on this because this is not my area of expertise.
I think you're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's just say they took out more than what they were allowed to. Well, they get penalized for that, and they have to pay back taxes on that. Yes. So that money, when they pay it back, goes into an interest earning account then, and we're allowed to utilize that money then for agriculture preservation.
Which is not based on state law, but county policy relative to utilizing it in the agriculture conservation easement program?
There is a provision in the law that says we are allowed to use that for easement, yes, easement purchases, yes.
What do you see in the future? Now we're going to pull out the crystal ball prophetically. It's hard to determine the funding stream, but the commitment seems to exist, certainly in Berks County and Lancaster County as well. I know what you'd want to do. Do you think the dollars are going to be there to continue to grow the program?
I think we are going to stay on the course that we are right now, $1 million a year. I think with all the focus on county budgets from the county side, we have really run as close to, you know, the bottom of the pocket as possible. And I just think with all the other concerns in the county, we'll still remain at $1 million. On the state side, you know, we get cigarette tax money, we get environmental funding money, and then it's divvied up through the 56 other counties that have a program just like ours. I would hope that we could bring back Growing Greener in the future. That was an additional money stream that was, when we sent up the county money to the state, it got matched with significant funds. So that would be a very positive thing to see.
We think of agriculture conservation easements as being involatile for any reason. Let's talk just for a moment about highway, utility lines, Public Utility Commission. Is there any clashing that goes on here?
Well, there are provisions in the deed of easement that have to allow for the utility rights to go through a property. And if there is no other way for a highway, the PennDOT or whatever organization has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt there's no other path, then the area is condemned and the easement money gets paid back to both the county and the state for what is being done. However, we have not experienced that. I can't speak on the future. When I mentioned before, yeah, you need a little road widening here or there or a bridge widening that takes just a hair of farmland, but on a bigger scale, we have not seen that yet, nor I don't think anywhere in the state we've seen that. You know, you really got to plan for these things.
Right. And looking at the map, and I have to admit I was not with a magnifying glass, it appears that there are agriculture conservation easements proximal to the 222 corridor.
Yes, sir.
Going north.
Right.
So any substantial increase in the width of the highway there would seem to strike into agriculture conservation easements?
I believe there could be 6 easements that we have along there that, again, it's just on the edge of the road. And if they're looking at widening, you know, and a setback, we will probably need to condemn some land along there, definitely.
How long do you see yourself doing what you're involved with? It seems like it's for a lifetime. This is a career. You're not going anywhere.
Not in the next couple years, no. No, I really enjoy it. Working with the farmers has been just so rewarding. I mean, it's an honorable profession. They work night and day, 365 days a year. And it's been great to get to know them. And I think this is a positive for the future program as well.
I think you'll be doing it forever, you know,
thanks.
personally, because this is your passion, this is your life. For my family and I, when we go out to a farm stand or we go to an orchard, I also think about this program and the preservation of local, fresh, you know where the thing came from.
Right.
It's not hard as a rock stuff from South America.
Right,
You know?
right.
And I appreciate the personal interaction that my family can have with people on the farm, because we're talking about smaller scale operation. This is not agribusiness in the traditional sense. The average sized farm is relatively modest in Berks County, maybe compared to other farms in the Midwest.
It's about 115 acres, according to the 2012 Census of Agriculture, about 115 acres, yeah.
We're winding down here. Based on some numbers that I looked at, we actually seem to be increasing the numbers of farms, at least in some years.
When you compare the census to previous years, 2008 and 2000, I forget the years, but yes, it does appear that we're having more farms and larger farms, only because I think farmers are buying more land to add to their operation.
When I looked at those numbers, I'm almost like, well, I'm misreading this, because you look nationally and agribusiness-oriented operations, there's consolidation that goes on, but it seems like in Berks County and Lancaster County, people really appreciate this as a lifestyle, not just as a business.
They do, and thank goodness that they do, you know. I think some people, though, think the grass is green on the other side, too. I think they don't realize that you have to understand weather, you have to understand markets, you have to understand your product and where you need to sell that product, and you need to understand how much it costs to buy all this machinery. I mean, it's a big, big business.
And how hard you have to work.
And how hard you have to work, yeah.
I closed with this. We had a problem with one of our sheep late one night.
Oh, goodness.
And I called a friend in agriculture, and he said, meet me. He's from Lenhartsville. We're down at Robinson. We met at the 50-yard line, and we're still having a substantive problem with the sheep. And I called him at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he goes, you know, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
It's about teamwork.
Right.
It's about pitching in together. Eventually, I brought a veterinarian in early in the morning. We were able to resolve the problem. But it is so rewarding to work with people in agriculture. My daughters count the days till the Ole Fair.
Oh, no kidding. That's wonderful.
They absolutely love it.
And we're getting into fair season. I think the first week of June is the Kempton Fair, and then we'll have the Reading, Kutztown, Ole, you know, from August to September, and they're great times.
That's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen. If you need assistance with any state matter, please feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for Legislative Report.